propane. Okay, so hopefully you can hear me okay. Behind me is my Case 1816 skid steer. I've been having problems with the left-hand drive basically since not too long, maybe a couple of years after I retrofitted those different drive motors into it. Kind of botched the install on the sprocket on the left-hand drive, and so it's been fighting me ever since. I put a different sprocket on there at one point, and it didn't work too well. The shaft was all galled up, and I ended up welding it on there, and that held for a while, but it finally broke, and this time it took the motor shaft with it. And with these cheap hydraulic motors these days, I mean they're a good quality motor, they're well built, but they don't have any parts available other than a seal kit. I mean, there are no hard part kits or no shafts or nothing like that for them. So what I did was I ordered a new drive motor. It was about $140, so it's not the end of the world. And I've got that, and I'm going to do some re-engineering on it. So I figured I'd take you guys along and let you see at least see what I'm thinking here. So anyway, we'll get started on this, and I will give you guys updates. First things first, I got to take the seat plate out, and I'll be taking the left-hand wheels off and loosening the drives, and I'll show you that adjustment when I get there. The seat I won't show. There's nothing to it. There's 4 bolts. But I'll show you that adjustment on the wheels. It's very simple. It's about as simple as you can get really on the skid steer. So I'll pull the wheels off. I'll move those in. I've got to break the front chain loose and then pull that out, and then I'll be pulling the motors out. I'll take you along for that as well. And then I'll show you what I'm planning for an improvement here. And I'll kind of talk you through my thought process as to how I came to this decision as opposed to going with another idea that I had considered. So I guess we'll get to it. Okay, so here's how the hub tensioners are. I got the wheels off. These are just the hub mounting plates or mounting bolts. They suck this plate up against it. So you loosen those 4. Same on the rear, they're loosened. And then there's a tensioner. Focus, camera, focus, you can do it. Might have some dirt on my lens or something. Okay, there we go. So, there's a jam nut. Oh, I don't remember getting it that tight, but apparently I did. And then this is a square-headed bolt. So it just loosens up. Now in order to tighten it, pretty obvious, you'll want to snug these up tighter so that they're basically finger tight, so this plate slides against here. And then you crank this in and come over and check your tension, your chain tension. Once you get it to the right tension, you lock down that nut, and then you ram these bolts down. It's as simple as that. Alright, so this front chain's super tight, so in order to get it loose, I basically have to run back that nut all the way out, or that bolt all the way out, and then loosen these up quite a bit so that the plate's good and sloppy, and then slide it all the way to the rearward. Ugh. So that it actually is climbing up over that. There's a small weld there, and it's got to get just above that in order to be able to give me enough slack. Because this thing's super tight. So now, got to get the master link up here to the top of this big sprocket, the big bull sprocket here, and get it pulled loose, and then we'll get that chain out. Okay, we got that front chain out. The rear chain will, we can just pull that sprocket out. I'll leave that rear chain intact, and it'll just lay down in there. So the next things will be to pull those hydraulic hoses off and cap them, otherwise they just keep puking oil. And then we've got the bolts, one on either side, and we'll get those out. This time around I went ahead and pulled the instrument cluster panel and just set it up top there. I don't normally do that, usually I just work underneath it, but I figured I might be mocking this up multiple times, so wanted to make it easier on myself, so I went ahead and pulled those. It's just 6 bolts, basically 4 on the one going through the side on each side, actually goes this way, and then one going through the bottom on both sides. And then there's on the back, on this top lip here, is 2 hydraulic dampers for the steering levers, and they're a nut and bolt, and you just unbolt those and lay the dampers back. Alright, we'll get those hoses off of there. Alright, we got the hoses off. Next are those bolts, and then the motor will slide out, and that sprocket will just fall down in there. So the shaft's already busted off, so it's about to fall out anyway. Then we'll pull that sprocket out. I think it goes through the same hole that the motor sticks through. But I can't remember for sure if I have to do that or if I have to weasel it out the side here. But anyway, onward and upward. Alright, you can see some carnage here. Here's that shaft, busted off, sheared the key. I had it pinned in 2 places with hardened pins, sheared them off as well. I think there was actually a little bit of, not an engineer, so bear with me, a lateral thrust. You know, there's torsion on it as it's turning, but then also there was I think there was lateral thrust, because if you don't get both of your chains perfectly even on tension, or the ground, the ground you're sitting on, you know, you kind of lose traction. You're digging really deep into the pile, and you've kind of lifted the rear end of the machine up. You've lost some of the traction off of the rear, so the front is pulling a lot harder. So then that motor is going to, or the sprocket's going to try to turn in there and lever, in addition to the torsion. So I think it was that movement that caused our damage, that's caused this repeated failure. Now this other side still has, that's skid steer drive sprocket Mark 1 right there. That's basically just 2 sprockets that I welded together, and this sucker's been going for 10 years thereabouts. Why it hasn't broke, I don't know. The chains are really loose, and I'm afraid to tension them because I'm afraid I'll break that sprocket. But I'm going to have to tension this one a little bit because it's just too loose. But I've just been leaving them a little loose, and so far it hasn't blown up on me. This one keeps blowing up, but it's easier to reach. That one being clear underneath the instrument cluster, of course. You got to take the cluster off to get it out. I don't have another sprocket to change that, so I'm going to again leave it as it is. It only takes about 15-20 minutes to get dug clear down into there when I've got the machine inside the building. Oh, additionally, you can, if you haven't noticed, I'm still in the garage. That's because I didn't get my shop built this summer. I got the foundation done, but that was basically as far as I got. That's a story for another time. But anyway, everything's out now, so here's the plan. I'm going to fit the new motor up and the new sprocket up, and we're going to figure out exactly where it's sitting. Right here, we're going to drill a hole through there. On the back side, we're going to mount a pillow block and a little stub shaft. So the way this is set up, the shaft is not long enough. This is not driven all the way down, obviously. But the shaft is only long enough to go like not even barely halfway down this sprocket. So my thought is, I've got some 1-inch keyed shaft. I'll slide that shaft in there and then run it through a pillow block, and that'll help take out some of the some of that lateral thrust. Whether this is really going to work long term or not, I don't know. I kind of need the machine to finish some dirt work on that foundation, so I need to get my motor and get the I'll get the sprocket. I tried to put it on there upside down. Obviously I need a spacer on the other side, so I gotta pop it back off of there, get it flipped over. I had this, it was basically a border size sprocket, so that's the best I can get for a 3-strand sprocket of the right size, 60 chain 9 tooth. So I had to have it bored out and a keyway put in because it just had a small, like maybe 1/2-inch bore. It's just a straight bore. It's intended to be finished by the customer. So that cost me like, I don't know, what was it, 60 bucks just to have this board. Now boring isn't the expensive part, is broaching that keyway, because you know they tend to break keys or break broaches and things like that, so they tend to charge quite a penny for cutting a keyway. But anyway, that's done. I'm gonna eventually have to get another sprocket for the other side and get it bored. The sprocket itself is like 30 bucks, so you know it's not a super cheap proposition, but it's still way cheaper than trying to get an original drive motor, which is like $800 for a single motor. So I've got, even with all the repairs I've done, I'm still in it less than one single motor, even after buying another drive motor. Anyway, I'll get that turned over and put on there where it needs to be. And then we'll get the motor set in there and we'll continue on. Alright, so my new sprocket came back from the machine shop and I left a tiny lip on the one side, so I have this half-round file, so I'm just working that lip down so that I can get my new key shaft in there. And it shouldn't take a whole lot, but there was, measured out, there were 9 thousandths that needed to come off, but it's right on the very end, so it shouldn't be too hard to get it out of there. Just gotta take the old file and give her some, pour the mojo to it here, and alright, let's see how that looks. Oh, forgot you guys were plugged in. Okay, so the sprocket would slide on one direction okay. It's tight, which is how it should be. But it didn't want to slide on this way. It looks like we still got a ways to go. Let's see, what are we? Oh, we're getting close. Alright, I'm going to keep working on it. Okay, we got it going on this way. And going on this way. I'm not gonna, it won't go on. Bugger. Won't go on all the way without some motivation, and I'm not going to give it that motivation because I don't want it getting stuck on there and then have to beat it back off. So now we got that working. So now get you in frame here. We'll go in with this, and that'll help. Jeez, I'm a little rusty with the camera, I guess. And that'll help take out that torque, or that, not the torque, but the thrust, that lateral thrust. Here's the pillow block that I got. It doesn't appear to be very well sealed, so I'm going to have to keep it greased, and we'll see how long it holds up. However, it's going to be bolted to the outside, so it won't be too terribly difficult to replace. And I guess that's it for now.